Chapter 1021. I found out when I visited the crew the next day. Jiang Mui yawned, scratched his head and answered honestly. However, as soon as Jiang Mui finished his words, Ningxi's face changed. Aha! Ningxi narrowed her eyes and glanced at Jiang Mui. Then she moved her fingers and walked to Jiang Mui step by step. Golden Retriever, come here. I won't come here. Jiang Mui, who had just woken up instantly when he saw Ningxi's dangerous expression. He regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. Oh, no, I said the wrong thing. Why didn't you tell me? Ningxi roared with her hands on her hips. Then she pounced on Jiang Mui and began to beat him. I was forced to do it. My uncle threatened me. Why didn't you blame my uncle for beating me? Ouch. Don't hit my face. Lu Jingli was comforted to see Jiang Mui, who was also beaten. Finally, he had someone to keep him company. After a while, the four of them sat together at the table. In addition to the four of them, of course, Little Bun was also there. Looking at Xiaobao, who was not surprised to see Ku Mingyu and Mema holding hands, Lu Jingli was even sadder. Sure enough, Xiaobao also knew. He was the last one to know. However, Lu Jingli soon regained his spirit because Ningxi had made them another hot pot. Although he had broken a pot and was beaten up, he had made a lot of money in exchange for a hot pot made by little 1111 herself. Ningxi adjusted the base and then went to her room to get some bottles and cans. Then, Ningxi sat next to Lu Tingxiao and began to apply it on his face one by one. Lu Tingxiao cooperated as usual. Jiang Mui buried his head in his food and said, out of sight, out of mind. Lu Jingli was speechless and pursed his lips. Little 1111, what are you doing? Why are you applying something for a woman on my brother? Ningxi rolled her eyes at him. What do you mean by that? A man's face is also very important, okay? Besides, this is a set of men's skincare products that I specially bought for your brother. He must feel uncomfortable covering his face for too long, so I'll give him a massage. Aya, it feels so good. When Little Bun, who was at the side, heard this, he immediately raised his head and used his finger to poke his little face, looking at Mama with anticipation. Ningxi immediately smiled and reached out to touch the Little Bun's soft little face. Baby's little face feels even better. Lu Jingli. I think I'm full. Jiang Mui said that ever since he learned that Lu Tingxiao had disguised himself to accompany Ningxi to film with her, he had become numb to everything. He didn't even have the slightest bit of temper when he lost. The enemy was just too cruel. After wiping Lu Tingxiao's face, Ningxi asked Jiang Mui suspiciously while feeding Little Bun, golden hair, how did you find out that Ku Mingyu is Lu Tingxiao? He actually discovered it earlier than me and Xiaobao. This is simply illogical. Jiang Mui was about to speak when a cold gaze suddenly locked on him from the opposite side. He didn't dare to say that it was because he and Zhuang Ku'er were lovey-dovey that Lu Tingxiao lost control of himself due to jealousy and was discovered by him. I just found it by chance. Why do you ask so many questions? You've already beaten me up. Jiang Mui said perfunctorily and then began to eat crazily. Damn it, it's not easy to get food. It's torturous both mentally and physically. Chapter 1022. The next day, Ningxi woke up early in the morning and changed into a set of light clothes. Today, she had an appointment with Gong Shangze to go to the Peach Blossom Village to visit the master of Chinese painting, Song Jin. Because the Peach Blossom Village was a bit far away, about 3 to 4 hours by car, and the roads in the village were not good, the car could not drive in, so Ningxi decided not to drive herself. Instead, she bought a ticket and went on a long-distance bus. When she was at the studio, Ningxi had already studied Song Jin's strategy with Gong Shangze. It included all of Elder Song's life information and works, especially his personality and hobbies. Unfortunately, the results of the research were not very optimistic. As the bus gradually left the city, Ningxi leaned against the back of the chair and looked at the dense information in the notebook with a headache. Sigh, it is indeed a bit difficult. At Elder Song's level, he has basically jumped out of the 3 realms and no longer belongs to the 5 element. It's really hard to please him. Gong Shangze, who was also browsing through Song Jin's works on his iPad, muttered, Elder Song is living alone now. He's all alone, so there's no chance of getting anything from the people around him. Worst of all, Elder Song especially hates it when people disturb his peace. It's almost impossible to use money or other worldly things to curry favor with him. TSK, everyone has a weakness. It's impossible that he doesn't have any flaws. It's useless to just talk on paper, let's see him in person first. Okay. On the bus, She slept with her head tilted. When she woke up, it was almost time to go. Because Shi and Gong Shangze got off at the last stop, there were only the two of them left on the bus. It seemed that this place was really deserted. But it was no wonder, otherwise the scenery would not be so primitive. Wow! The scenery here is so beautiful. Looking at the green peach forest outside the window, Shi suddenly became energetic and couldn't help but exclaim. Gong Shangze nodded, even the air is so fresh. Oh my! This is pure air without any smog. I want to take a few more breaths. She squinted her eyes and took a few deep breaths. When we enter the village, the scenery will be even better, Gong Shangze said with some yearning. TSK, Elder Song really knows how to enjoy life. A place like this should be very inspirational, right? As the two talked, they arrived at the last stop. She quickly grabbed her backpack and got off the bus with Gong Shangze. How do we go after that? She looked at the endless fields and peach forest in front of her, feeling relaxed and happy. She thought that even if she couldn't invite anyone, she could just treat it as an outing. If there was a chance, she must bring Xiaobao over to play. Last time when she went camping with Lu Tingxiao, she didn't take Xiaobao with her. She always felt sorry for Xiaobao, so she prepared to give Xiaobao a spring outing. Gong Shangze glanced at the GPS on his phone. First, follow this small path straight ahead. All right. Let's go. She plucked a peach blossom from the roadside and walked forward in high spirits. However, half an hour later, both of them were dumbfounded. Ah, Gong Shangze. Are we lost? Gong Shangze fiddled with his phone anxiously. But that's what the navigation says. So, does the GPS want us to swim over? She stared at the wide river in front of her. Gong Shangze sighed. The terrain here is complicated, and the navigation is probably inaccurate. I was careless. Left with no choice, the two of them could only continue to walk around. It was only in the evening that they finally saw a small courtyard. Chapter 1023. Every household in the Peach Blossom Village was very far away from each other, and Song Jin lived in a particularly remote place. It was really difficult to find someone who came here for the first time. Fortunately, they finally found her today, so their trip was not in vain. Not far in front of them, there was an antique little courtyard. The chimney on the roof was emitting wisps of smoke. Behind the house was a large and dense peach blossom forest. Not far away was a sparkling paddy field. Occasionally, the sound of an old ox could be heard in the courtyard, open up the wilderness in the south, defend one's clumsiness and return to the garden. The Fang residence is more than 10 acres, with 8 or 9 thatched cottages. Behind the eaves of the elm and willow trees, in front of the peaches and plums. In the warm distant village, in the ruins of smoke. TSK, looks like Elder Song is a fan of Dao Yuanming. She laughed. After running around for a whole day, Gong Shangze was about to collapse from exhaustion. But when he turned his head, She was still reciting poems in high spirits. It was really indescribable. The courtyard did not have a door, it was just a fence made of a few pieces of wood. The two slightly tidied up their appearance, then walked in front of the wooden door. Excuse me, is Mr. Song home? Gong Shangze called out to the courtyard. There was no movement inside. However, looking at the chimney on the roof, there must be someone at home. The two called out a few more times, and sure enough, after a while, a figure came out of the house. They saw that the person was wearing a coarse long robe, had a white beard, was hale and hearty, and had the demeanor of an immortal. After seeing Song Jin, Ningxi's heart suddenly thumped. The old man looked like he had no desires, and people without desires were the most difficult to deal with. Mr. Song. Gong Shangze was Song Jin's diehard fan. When he saw his idol, his exhaustion disappeared, and he was full of excitement. He said excitedly, "Mr. Song, I'm sorry to disturb your peace. My name is Gong Shangze, I'm a designer, and I like your works very much. You are my favorite calligrapher, and I still have your superb 10-li frog cry in my collection." Gong Shangze was indeed a qualified fan. He was very familiar with Song Jin's works, and the passion and excitement in his eyes were all real and pure. From Ningxi's point of view, if she had such a cute and enthusiastic fan who came all the way to see her, she should at least invite him in for a cup of tea. "There are no painters here, only an old man. Please go back." However, Song Jin's expression was very indifferent from the beginning to the end. His gaze did not seem to be looking at the two of them, but at two lifeless things. In the end, he only replied with this sentence and went straight into the house. Looking at the merciless closing of the door, Gong Shangze's face was full of disappointment. "Although I was prepared, but," Ningxi patted him on the shoulder. "It's nothing. At least you got to see your idol." Gong Shangze perked up again. "I still want to wait a little longer." Ningxi had the same plan. "Then let's wait a little longer. Maybe Elder Song will be willing to see us after seeing our sincerity." The two of them waited outside the door until sunset. Seeing that it was getting darker and darker, Ningxi sighed, "God is so uncooperative. How nice it would be if there was a heavy downpour at this time." However, it was obvious that the heavens were not on their side. They waited until the end, but there was no rain. Of course, Song Jin did not change her mind either. "Shangze, come back tomorrow. Any later and we won't be able to catch the last bus." Although Gong Shangze was unwilling, he could only leave first. Chapter 1024. The next day, Ningxi and Gong Shangze once again went to the Peach Blossom Village. Because he already had experience this time, he knew how to get there, so he arrived at noon. The two of them met Song Jin on the way to the fields. Song Jin was wearing a straw hat and was transplanting rice seedlings in the fields. Song Jin's skill in transplanting seedlings was experienced and fast. At first glance, he looked exactly like an ordinary villager. Who would have thought that he was a famous Chinese traditional painting master? From the corner of his eyes, he saw that the two people from yesterday had come to visit again. Song Jin did not have any special reaction. She was still indifferently doing her own things. Ningxi had failed to get close to him yesterday, so she decided to change her routine this time. So, she went straight to the point and said, "Hello, Mr. Song. I'm Ningxi, the person in charge of Ziling Studio. This is our designer, Gong Shangze. Ziling is a clothing design company that focuses on Hua national style. Our designers like your work very much, and also because your work is very compatible with our style, we are here to talk about cooperation with you. I wonder if you can consider it." After a short moment of silence, Song Jin straightened up and looked in Ningxi's direction. "Young man, you should find someone else. I've already said that I'm just an old man. I can't help you." Ningxi scratched her head speechlessly. Damn, why is it this sentence again? However, from this sentence, it could be seen that Song Jin had no interest in worldly affairs anymore. Who knew what could interest him? "Elder Song, don't you want to reconsider? Even if you don't care about fame and fortune, don't you want your works to be passed down and display greater value?" Ningxi asked tentatively. Hearing this, Song Jin's figure seemed to freeze. Could there be a chance? Ningxi immediately looked over nervously, but the other party bent down and continued transplanting. All right, he failed again, however, it was no wonder. Song Jin had already reached the top and was famous both in China and abroad. Why would she care about cooperating with a clothing company? Ningxi and Gong Shangze took turns trying to persuade him, but still returned empty-handed. Before leaving, Ningxi put the documents of the studio at the door. Seeing Gong Shangze's listless look, Ningxi patted his shoulder and said, "Don't be discouraged. Liu Bei invited Zhuge Liang to visit the thatched cottage 3 times. Let's fight tomorrow. Maybe it'll be done tomorrow." In the end, he failed again on the 3rd day. After returning from the Peach Blossom Village, Ningxi went straight to the Platinum Gold Palace. As soon as she entered the room, Ningxi threw herself on the sofa. Oh, it's so difficult. What happened?" Lu Tingxiao was sitting on the sofa reading the newspaper. Seeing the girl in such a state as soon as she came in, he touched the girl's hair and asked, "That's the Chinese painting master I told you about. It's so hard to invite him." "Ning," she murmured. "Song Jin?" "Yeah." He was completely unmoved by force or persuasion. The key is that he has no desires and nowhere to start. "Ning," she couldn't help but complain. "It's unlikely that you'll be able to invite Ms. Song. I suggest you find someone else," Lu Tingxiao said. "All right, since even Lu Tingxiao said so, it was probably hopeless." "Ning," she sighed. "I also think it's impossible. Let's try for the last time tomorrow." That unlucky child, Gong Shangzi, had been staying indoors for a long time. His body was too weak, and he had fallen sick from running around for the past few days. "Tomorrow I have to go alone." "Oh no. No. Tomorrow is Saturday. I'll just take little Bun on a spring outing." "Perfect." Chapter 10:25. As soon as Ning she finished her words, a soft little Bun ran downstairs and threw itself into her arms, his face shining with expectation. Seeing Xiaobao so excited at the mention of a spring outing, Ning she felt a little guilty. "Sorry, Bun, I haven't taken you out for a long time. Let's go tomorrow. And we'll go alone. Going with Mama without Papa." When little Bun heard this, his eyes lit up even brighter, almost dazzling Ning Xi's eyes. "Ning," she said, "yes. No big light bulb. Lu Tingxiao. Isn't this retribution coming a little too fast? What? Do you have a problem with that?" Ning she looked at Lu Tingxiao and raised her eyebrows. Lu Tingxiao said helplessly, "No." This girl knew that he had to go on a business trip tomorrow and wouldn't be able to go. "Okay, then it's decided." Xiaobao was so excited that he couldn't sleep the whole night since he decided to go on a spring outing with Mama. It was the first time in his life that he would go on a spring outing with Mama. The next morning, Xiaobao got up and began to pack and prepare for the spring outing. The family of 3 packed up and were ready to go separately. At this time, a man suddenly rushed over from the opposite villa. "Wait. Me too. Me too. Lu Jingli. Why are you here?" Ning she looked at him in surprise. "My brother said you're going on a spring outing. There must be a barbecue. There must be a picnic. I want to go too." Lu Jingli looked like he was about to drool. Ning she was speechless. "Are you here for the spring outing or for food?" "For food, of course. Sister-in-law, the barbecue you made last time was delicious. I won't eat for free. I'll be your backpack's coolie," Lu Jingli said with a flattering face. "It's in the wilderness. Let Jingli go with you," Lu Tingxiao said. "Okay." Ning she thought it was good to have someone to help her backpack. She did bring a lot of things today. Do you mind taking one more person?" Jiang Mui's voice came from behind. Looking at Jiang Mui, who had popped out of nowhere, Lu Jingli was annoyed that there was another person stealing his food. "What the fuck? Jiang Mui, why are you everywhere? It's one thing to freeload off a midnight snack, but you're also freeloading off a spring outing. Didn't you say we were going to the wilderness? There shouldn't be anyone in the wilderness, right? I've been suffering from crowd syndrome recently, and I get a headache whenever I see a lot of people. I need a place like this to relax," Jiang Mui said in a weak and worried tone. The corners of Ning Xi's mouth twitched. What the hell is crowd syndrome? It's the problem of people like us who are too popular. It's not your fault that you don't understand. Jiang Mui sighed. Ning Xi, his hands were itching to beat someone up. In the end, Ning Xi and Xiaobao became 3 people and then 4 people. So be it. One can help carry the bag, and the other can carry Xiaobao when he's tired. This is the rhythm of Pigsy and the White Dragon Horse. Pretty good. After making the decision, Ning Xi walked up to Lu Tingxiao and said goodbye. "Honey, let's go Tilda." As soon as Lu Jingli and Jiang Mui heard Ning Xi speak in such a soft and sweet tone, they knew it was time to show off. They immediately quickened their steps and walked further away. What the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. Chapter 10:26. Well, have fun. Lu Tingxiao patted the girl's head. Ning Xi looked at Lu Tingxiao, who still had to work overtime on the weekend, and suddenly felt sorry for him. Sigh, I suddenly feel sorry for leaving you alone. What should I do? Although she was originally going to work today, the atmosphere now seemed to have completely turned into an outing. Lu Tingxiao pinched the girl's soft earlobes and whispered, "Make it up to me in the future." Ning, she blinked her eyes. "Why don't I make it up to you now? That's enough. There are still minors here." Lu Jingli howled not far away. Ning, she tiptoed and kissed Lu Tingxiao on the cheek, then waved goodbye to the child's father. It was the first time for Little Bun to take a bus like this. He was very excited along the way, especially when they arrived at the Peach Blossom Village. Looking at the scenery in front of him, the little guy's eyes were full of curiosity and light. Although Ning, she had seen the same scenery 3 times and was already numb to it, it was a new experience because she was with Little Bun this time. The scenery is so beautiful, there is no trace of human activity at all. The most important thing is that there is no one here. Cool. Oh, Jiang Mui looked at the green mountains and clear waters in the distance and screamed. It seemed that he had been holding back for a long time. "Hey, did you tell Brother Ming when you came out today?" Ning, she asked casually. "Jiang Mui, why should I tell him?" Ning, she. Lei Ming didn't know what sin he had committed in his previous life to be Jiang Mui's agent in this life. Ning, she didn't have the heart to do that, so she sent a text message to Lei Ming to tell him. Wow, delicious. It's so sweet. While Ning, she was not paying attention, Lu Jingli had already climbed up the tree. He was picking a few peach blossoms and eating the honey in the stamens. Sure enough, he was a foodie. Ning, she also picked some and gave it to Little Bun. Little Bun licked a little, her eyes sparkling. Let's go. The scenery in front is even better. Ning, she had not come here for nothing. She had already figured out the nearby route and knew the best scenery and the most fun places. It was no problem for her to be a good tour guide. Along the way, the 4 of them went sightseeing. At noon, Ning, she took them to a beautiful peach forest to settle down and start a picnic. Lu Jingli finally waited for the moment he had been waiting for. He quickly set up the barbecue rack that he had been carrying all the way, and then took out all the ingredients and arranged them properly. Ning, she was instructing Jiang Mui to spread the tablecloth and set the tableware. After that, she asked the 2 of them to get busy, and she took little Bowsy to catch butterflies and rabbits. Golden Fur, are you done yet? Come here, there is a rabbit here, go catch it. We'll have an extra meal today. Lying on the ground, Jiang Mui watched the big and the small jumping not far away. Only then did he suddenly realize that he had fallen into a trap. He was simply here to be a coolie. No wonder Lu Tingxiao didn't object when he said he wanted to come over. Catch my ass. I'm not a dog. You can even catch rabbits. Jiang Mui snorted. Useless. Help me take care of Xiao Bao tilde, this young master will go catch it tilde Ning, she said and ran away. After a while, Ning, she came back with a fluffy white rabbit in her hand. Jiang Mui was speechless. Are you a fucking woman or not? Seeing the rabbit in Mama's hand, little Bowsy immediately ran over excitedly. Ning, she squatted down and said softly to little Bowsy, "Do you want to touch it? It's so fluffy and soft." Chapter 10:27. It was Little Bun's first time seeing a real rabbit. He hesitated for a moment and then reached out his little hand to touch the rabbit. After that, Little Bun's eyes widened. It was soft. Furry. Ning, she couldn't help laughing at Little Bun's lively expression. Haha, was it fun? Little Steamed Bun nodded repeatedly, fondling it lovingly. The rabbit was still kicking when it was in Ning Shi's hand. But after Little Bun touched it, it quieted down. Wow, what a fat rabbit. Quick, roast it. Lu Jingli said excitedly. When Little Bun heard this, she immediately glared at Lu Jingli and hugged the rabbit. Roast your head. You only know how to eat. Ning, she snapped. Sister-in-law. Didn't you say you caught it for dinner? Lu Jingli said innocently. Ning, she said, Xiao Bao likes it. Don't eat it now. Xiao Bao nodded vigorously. Don't eat the rabbit. It's mine. Lu Jingli. It belongs to my stomach. Did you bring the first aid kit? Ning, she asked. Jiang Mui frowned. Are you hurt? I told you not to catch the rabbit. Ningxi, the rabbit is hurt, okay? Jiang Mui, Ningxi took out the first aid kit and began to bandage the rabbit. Wild rabbits ran very fast and were very alert. How could she catch it so easily? Because one of the rabbit's legs was injured, she caught it. Little Bun touched the rabbit's head with a distressed look, as if it was him who was in pain. After the bandage, Ningxi carefully put the rabbit in Little Bun's arms. The rabbit was well behaved in Little Bun's arms. Why do you have to do this? It's better to eat it directly. Lu Jingli looked distressed. Fortunately, he soon forgot about the rabbit because Ningxi began to roast it. In the woods, the fragrance of peach blossoms and the tempting aroma of food mixed together, making people salivate and hungry. As the four of them were eating, they heard squeaking footsteps behind them. Ningxi subconsciously turned her head and saw Song Jin walking towards the peach forest with a basket in her hand while leading the oxen. Ah! I was having too much fun and almost forgot about the important matter. The reason why she chose this place to have a picnic was because she found that Song Jin would usually come here for lunch after finishing her farm work. Elder Song, are you done with your work? Do you want to come over and eat with us? Ningxi asked enthusiastically. After coming here for 3 days, Ningxi was already familiar with them. In addition, she didn't have much hope this time, so her attitude was much more relaxed. Song Jin looked at them, and when her gaze fell on Xiao Bao, she said, "Thank you, I brought lunch." 10 steps away from Ningxi and the others, he sat under a tree root and began to eat his lunch. The basket was filled with simple cornbread and pickled vegetables. Is he Song Jin? Jiang Mui asked. On the way, Ningxi had already talked to Jiang Mui and Lu Jingli about Song Jin. Yeah. Isn't it very transcendent? Ningxi clicked her tongue. On the side, Lu Jingli's mouth was covered in grease as he mumbled, "Even the most transcendent person has a weakness, let me tell you. For example, my brother's weakness is you, and my weakness is delicious food. Haha, you can use your brother as an example, but you, forget it. Anyway, that's what I mean. He must have something he wants, but you haven't found it yet." Chapter 10:28. It's the same as not saying anything. If she knew what Song Jin wanted, she wouldn't be running around like a headless fly. Seeing Little Bun feeding the rabbit grass while eating by himself, Ningxi's big eyes were full of liveliness. Ningxi held her forehead and wiped Little Bun's mouth. She was in a good mood again. She was worried that Little Bun wouldn't be able to adapt to this place, but she didn't expect him to be so good at it. She didn't feel tired at all. It seemed that she could take Little Bun out more often in the future. Nature was always the most healing. Looking at Ningxi's motherly expression, Jiang Mui's mood was indescribable. Not far away, Song Jin finished his lunch and went back to work in the fields. Ningxi and the others took a nap in the peach forest. When they got up in the afternoon, Ningxi took them to several other places to have fun. The four of them played happily until the evening. When they were about to go home, it suddenly rained. And the rain was getting heavier and heavier without any warning. Little Bun protected the rabbit in his arms nervously. Ningxi quickly carried Little Bun up. Lu Jingli took off his coat and wrapped Little Bun up. The four of them hurried out of the village. However, it was at least half an hour away from the village. With the rain, the road would be more and more difficult to walk. The situation was really bad. Ningxi was speechless. Damn. Are you kidding me? The rain didn't fall when it was supposed to, but it fell so happily when it wasn't supposed to. Where's the nearest place to hide from the rain? Jiang Mui asked. Only Old Song's house, but it's impossible. Old Song doesn't allow strangers to enter her house. Last time, I tried to go in and ask for some water, but she refused. Ningxi said. As they were talking, they happened to pass by Song Jin's house. Just when they were hesitating whether to ask for help, the door of the yard suddenly opened. Song Jin stood at the door and looked at them. Come in. What? She invited them in? Was there such a good thing? Thank you, old Mr. Song. Ningxi didn't have time to think. She hurried into the house with Little Bun in her arms. Thank you, old Mr. Song. Jiang Mui and Lu Jingli also thanked him. Song Jin's attitude was still quite indifferent. It's just for the sake of the child. Ningxi put the little bun down. Baby, quickly thank Grandpa Song. Little bun nodded her head. First, she let her mama carry the rabbit in her arms. Then, she took out her writing board and seriously wrote 5 words. Thank you, Grandpa. Song Jin was only slightly stunned when she saw that Xiao Bao was using a writing board to communicate with her. However, a trace of astonishment flashed across her eyes when she saw Xiao Bao's handwriting clearly. This child is so young, but he can actually write so well. The pitter-patter of rain was incessant outside, and it seemed like it wouldn't stop anytime soon. Song Jin told them to do as they pleased and then entered the study. Lu Jingli couldn't stay still and soon got bored. He rolled his eyes and suddenly took out a deck of cards from his bag. It's so boring. Let's play cards. Sure. Jiang Mui agreed. But how are we going to fight with 3 people? Lu Jingli looked at Little Bun with a smile. Let's teach Little Bun and let him play with us. In the study, Song Jin was originally concentrating on painting while the rain was in high spirits. Hearing this, she couldn't bear it anymore. She opened the door and waved to Xiao Bao. Child, come to Grandpa. Chapter 1029. Little Bun glanced at his mom subconsciously. Ningxi smiled and kissed Bun's little face. Go ahead. Play with Grandpa for a while. She was speechless at Lu Jingli, this swindler. She was worried about his future children. Little Bun nodded and went to the old man's room. He had just found that there were many paintings in the old man's study, so he couldn't help but look up at them. Do you like them? Song Jin asked with a rare look of gentleness when she saw the little boy staring at them. Little Bun nodded. Do you know calligraphy? I mean, do you know how to write with a brush? Song Jin asked again. Little Bun continued to nod. Then, do you know how to draw? Song Jin asked again with a hint of imperceptible nervousness in her tone. Little Bun nodded again. Song Jin immediately spread out a blank piece of paper and made room for Little Bun. Do you want to try? Outside, Ningxi, Lu Jingli, and Jiang Mui were playing Fight the Landlord. Lu Jingli glanced in the direction of the study and curled his lips. What's so fun about Xiao Bao hanging out with an old man? He might as well come and play cards with us. My steamed Bun loves to draw. With Elder Song's attainments in Chinese painting, it's worth it to receive a few words of advice from him. What's the point of playing mahjong with you? Ningxi said unhappily. Lu Jingli clicked his tongue. 11:11. You're becoming more and more professional as a mother. After a long time, the door of the study suddenly opened and Song Jin and Little Bun came out. Song Jin, who had always looked calm and aloof, was obviously excited at this moment. She glanced at Lu Jingli and Jiang Mui and asked, which one of you is the father of the child? Ah! Lu Jingli was stunned by this sudden question and then answered subconsciously, I'm not. Song Jin immediately looked at Jiang Mui. Jiang Mui coughed and said, I'm not either. Lu Jingli continued, I'm the child's second uncle. Jiang Mui said, I'm his cousin. Seeing Song Jin's strange expression, Ningxi couldn't help asking, Elder Song, what's the matter? Song Jin immediately looked at Ningxi. Are you the child's mother? Can you make the decision about this child? Huh? About the baby? What is it? Ningxi thought for a while. Well, if it's a big deal, we should listen to the child's father. After Ningxi finished speaking, she glanced at Little Bun, who had walked up to her, and cast a suspicious look. Baby, what's going on? Little Bun blinked with a confused look on his face. It was obvious that he didn't know either. Both Lu Jingli and Jiang Mui were confused as well. Hearing Ningxi's words, Song Jin looked anxious and asked, then, where is the child's father now? Can I meet him? Ningxi felt even more strange. Just as she was about to speak, there was a knock on the door, accompanied by the pitter-patter of rain. Who would be knocking on the door at this time in the wilderness? Song Jin calmed down and walked out absent-mindedly to open the door. She saw a tall man standing outside the door. The man was wearing a black trench coat and holding an umbrella in his hand. He was standing quietly in the night wind. Chapter 1030. You are. Song Jin sized up the newcomer with a burning gaze. The man was wet and his trousers were stained with mud. However, even though he looked disheveled, his aura didn't diminish at all. Instead, he gave off a refreshing feeling. Song Jin knew many people and immediately concluded that the man in front of her was not simple. There had been many people who had come here to invite him for various reasons, but none of them had such an aura. But, this person, why does he look somewhat familiar? Sorry to disturb you so late at night. I'm looking for someone, the man said. Song Jin guessed that he was looking for the 4 people who had just come in, so she let him in. Come in. Song Jin came back soon, followed by a man. Seeing who it was, Ningxi's eyes widened and she rushed to him. Lu Tingxiao, why are you here? I'm worried about you and the child. Seeing that she and Xiaobao were fine, Lu Tingxiao was a little relieved. Look, you're all wet. Ningxi took out a tissue and wiped the man nervously. Lu Tingxiao said, it's okay. Lu Jingli, who was completely ignored, was displeased. Hey, are you worried about your wife and child? There's still your biological brother and nephew here. Jiang Mui, don't bring me into this. Just ignore me. Wife and child? Song Jin was stunned. He was the child's father. No wonder he looked familiar. They did look like father and son, Mr. Song. Aren't you looking for Xiaobao's father? That's him. Lu Jingli looked at Song Jin and said. Ningxi suddenly remembered to explain to Lu Tingxiao, Elder Song seems to be looking for you. It seems to be about Xiaobao. Finally seeing the child's father, Song Jin didn't beat around the bush and said directly, your son is very talented in painting. I want to take him as my disciple. Huh? Elder Song, you want to take Xiaobao as your disciple? Ningxi said in surprise. Yes. Song Jin nodded with a serious expression. She looked at Lil Bao with a burning gaze. This. Ningxi didn't expect Song Jin to make such a request. She didn't know how to react. Song Jin had been single all his life, had no children, and had never accepted an apprentice. When Ningxi read the information, she thought he had no intention of accepting an apprentice, so she was a little surprised. From the looks of it now, it wasn't that he had no intention of accepting disciples, but that he hadn't met anyone he wanted to accept. Elder Song must have tested Xiaobao in the study just now, which was why she had such an idea. Elder Song, who had never accepted a disciple in her life, took a fancy to him. Ningxi was full of pride. Her son was the best. In fact, even Lu Tingxiao was a little surprised. He didn't expect that Song Jin would propose to accept Ningxi as her apprentice when she just took her child out for a spring outing and took shelter from the rain here. With Song Jin's attainments, it was undoubtedly a great fortune for Xiaobao that she was willing to accept him. So Lu Tingxiao exchanged a look with Ningxi and said, We've admired you for a long time, Senior Song. Of course we can't wait to meet you. However, this still depends on the child's own opinion. Jiang Mui, hey, we, husband and wife, aren't you a little too smooth with your words? You're not married yet. Chapter 1031. Of course. Song Jin nodded. Ningxi squatted down and asked Xiaobao, would you like to learn painting from this Grandpa Song? Xiaobao touched the fluffy white rabbit in his arms, blinked his eyes, looked at Papa, Mima, and then at the old man. Finally, under Song Jin's uneasy gaze, Xiaobao nodded. The moment the little fellow nodded, Song Jin was so excited that she almost burst into tears. Good. From now on, you are my only disciple. I will definitely pass on all my painting skills to you. Then, under the guidance of Papa and Mema, Xiaobao followed the steps of apprenticeship and served tea to Song Jin obediently, which could be regarded as a formal apprenticeship. After that, Lu Tingxiao thought for a while and said, but there is a problem. Sir, you live in a remote place, that's okay. I can move for my good disciple. I will move to a nearby place where you live. Song Jin said straightforwardly. The more he looked at Xiaobao, the more he liked him. His painting technique and skills had extremely high requirements for talent and spirituality. Originally, he did not expect to find a satisfactory successor in this life, but he did not expect God to be so kind to him. In the end, He still found this child. Ningxi didn't know what to say after hearing Song Jin's words. In order to meet this great master, she had to travel far and wide, but when it was Xiaobao's turn, Elder Song was so considerate that she went to his door to serve him. My bao is awesome. Because it was late and it was raining outside, Song Jin, who was in a good mood, asked them to stay for the night. Lu Jingli and Jiang Mui stayed in one room, and Ningxi, Lu Tingxiao, and Xiaobao stayed in another. Little Bun seemed to really like that rabbit. Even when he slept, he would hug it in his arms like a treasure. Lu Tingxiao saw the rabbit in his son's arms just now. He looked at Ningxi and asked, "Where did you get the rabbit?" Ningxi said proudly, "I caught it. I was going to roast it, but Xiaobao likes it, so I let him play with it. Isn't it cute? It's so fluffy. It's so soft. Cute." Lu Tingxiao stretched out his broad palm and touched the rabbit's ear. Xiaobao immediately took the rabbit to Mama. "It's mine. You can't touch it." Lu Tingxiao, seeing Lu Tingxiao's depressed look, Ningxi chuckled and rubbed her head against his. "Don't be sad. I'll let you touch it. Little Bun." The little fellow immediately gave the rabbit to Lu Tingxiao. "Papa, you'd better touch the rabbit." Ha 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 ha. Seeing this, Ningxi held her stomach and laughed uncontrollably. Looking at his son, Lu Tingxiao sighed helplessly. Although the father and son had united the battle line and the general direction remained the same, they still fought when it was time to fight for favor. "Oh, that's great. This time, in addition to the ancient martial arts teacher, our baby also has a painting teacher. He is really well versed in both the pen and the sword." Ningxi said happily. Lu Tingxiao said, "Ningxi." Lu Tingxiao suddenly called her seriously. Ningxi was confused. "What's wrong?" Lu Tingxiao, "Thank you." Ningxi, "Why are you thanking me?" Lu Tingxiao, "Thank you for treating Xiaobao so well." Ningxi stroked the little bun's head, her gaze gentle. "Isn't it natural for me to treat my son well? Steamed bun, right?" Xiaobao nodded decisively. The night was getting late. Outside the window was the pitter-patter of rain, and the air was filled with the fragrance of earth. Xiaobao gradually fell asleep and slept soundly. Chapter 1032. Ningxi laid on the bed and gently patted little Bun's back. "These days are really pleasant. When I retire one day, I will also find a place with such verdant hills and clear waters to live in seclusion." "Are you sure? There's no electricity or Wi-Fi here." "What do I need those for? You and little treasure are enough for me." Ningxi was chatting with Lu Tingxiao. At this time, there was a sudden knocking sound on the wall behind them. Then, they heard Lu Jingli's faint voice coming from next door. "Please, the soundproofing here isn't good. Do you have any humanity left in the middle of the night? If you do this again, I'm going to call the police." Ningxi, "Oh, sorry, I almost forgot you guys are still here." In the room next door, Lu Jingli, Jiang Mui, Lu Jingli angrily bit the pillow, then hugged the quilt and rolled around on the bed. I really want to fall in love." Jiang Mui moved away from him in disdain. The next morning, Song Jin cooked porridge with side dishes and a few salted duck eggs. Probably because the ingredients were good, it tasted very fragrant and refreshing. Lu Jingli ate 5 big bowls of porridge and was not afraid of bursting to death. "Elder Song, I've already arranged a place for you to stay. I'll send someone to pick you up when it's convenient for you," Lu Tingxiao said. Song Jin did not refuse and immediately agreed. "Tomorrow then. I'll pack my things today." Lu Tingxiao, "Okay." After they finished talking, Song Jin suddenly looked at Ningxi, who was feeding the rabbit with cabbage leaves. "Girl. Here. Elder Song, did you call me?" Ningxi hurriedly responded. "I agree to your request," Song Jin said after thinking for a while. Ningxi had thought that Song Jin was going to talk to her about Xiaobao. She was stunned for a moment before she realized what Song Jin was talking about. Her face was full of disbelief. You mean the cooperation with our studio?" "You agreed?" "Yes." Song Jin nodded, then looked at Little Bun and said, "Thank you for allowing me to accept such a good disciple." Ningxi almost cried tears of joy. She hugged Little Bun, who was next to her, and cried, "Oh, Steamed bun. You really are my little lucky star. Little Bun pursed her lips, feeling a little embarrassed by Mama's praise. After the excitement, she calmed herself down, and then she coughed slightly and asked, Elder Song, although I really hope to invite you to cooperate with us, of course, the most important thing is that you do it out of your own will. Song Jin understood what the girl meant and said, I've seen the information you left at the door. The little designer who came with you. What's his name again? Gong Shangzi. Yes, that kid's design is really good. It's not a disgrace to my reputation. Knowing that Song Jin agreed because she recognized Zi Ling's ability, she finally felt relieved. Thank you for your appreciation, Elder Song. We won't let you down. Chapter 1033. She went to the studio to tell everyone the good news. What? Mr. Song agreed. Han Momo jumped up in excitement. Sister Shi, you're amazing. Xiao Weilan had been worrying about the selection of a master painter when Shi came with good news. She heaved a sigh of relief and was even more surprised. She didn't expect that she could really do it. Sister Shi, how did you do it? Boss, did you invite Mr. Song? Gong Shangzi walked out when he heard the noise outside. Yeah. Didn't we leave a copy of our studio's information at Mr. Song's door? Mr. Song said he read it and praised you. He said your design was good, so it wasn't a disgrace to his reputation. Gong Shangzi's eyes turned red with excitement. Boss, are you serious? Of course I'm serious. Why would I lie to you? Do your best. But the most important thing is to take care of your health. After all, your health is the key to success. You can't just stay at home and not exercise. She said worriedly. Got it. I got it, boss. I'll do my best to design and exercise. Thank you. Thank you, boss. Gong Shangzi bowed with all his might. Meanwhile, at the Platinum Palace. Master, Madam. The old butler greeted Yang Rui and Lu Chongshan when he saw them. Yang Rui looked at the servants who were bustling in and out and asked suspiciously, What are they doing? Young master told us to tidy up the building next to the greenhouse. Someone wants to move in, the old butler answered honestly. Someone wants to move in? Yang Rui's expression changed. Could it be that the woman wanted to move in? Yang Rui glanced at Lu Chongshan, who had obviously thought of the same thing. Had they finally moved in? Tingxiao. Yang Rui called out to her son when she saw him from afar. Lu Tingxiao heard his mother's voice and walked over. Dad, Mom, what's up? Yang Rui glared at her son. Can't I come to see you and Xiaobao? Let me ask you, what are you doing? What was he going to do with the small building? Are you going to let Ningxi move in? Lu Chongshan's face darkened. Even if the two of you are a couple now, isn't it too much for you to cohabit before marriage? Lu Tingxiao looked at his parents expressionlessly. Song Jin. What Song Jin and Song Ming? Yang Rui didn't understand what his son meant. Lu Tingxiao said, The person who will be moving in is Song Jin, Mr. Song. What? Don't tell me it's that Chinese painting master Song Jin? Lu Chongshan asked in shock. Lu Tingxiao, Isn't Master Song living in seclusion in the Peach Blossom Village? Moreover, he did not see any outsiders at all. Why would he come to live here? Lu Chongshan felt that his son's lie was too ridiculous. Lu Tingxiao said, Song Jin has already accepted Xiaobao as her disciple. He agreed to move here for the convenience of teaching. Upon hearing those words, Lu Chongshan and Yang Rui were stunned. Lu Chongshan said in shock, What did you say? Song Jin accepted Xiaobao as her disciple? When did this happen? Yang Rui naturally knew who Song Jin was. She said anxiously, You damn child, can't you just say it clearly in one go? Why did I have to ask you a question? That's why I said a few words. What's going on? Tell me clearly. Chapter 1034. How did you manage to invite Song Jin? Lu Chongshan asked, and he could not help but look excited. If he could invite Song Jin to teach Xiaobao, it would be a great thing. Most importantly, Song Jin wasn't someone who could be invited with money, so he was really curious about how his son did it. It wasn't me. Lu Tingxiao was still a man of few words. Lu Chongshan was almost driven to death by his son's bad temper. Glancing at Lu Jingli, who was humming a song, he hurriedly stopped him. Jingli, come here. I have something to ask you. Hearing his father calling him, Lu Jingli walked over hesitantly, but stood far away. Dad. You. What do you want? I'd rather die than get married. Yang Rui glanced at her son speechlessly. Your father and I want to ask you about Xiaobao's apprenticeship with Song Jin. Do you know about it? Yes, I was there when Xiaobao was apprenticed last night. What's wrong? Lu Jingli nodded. Really? Come on. Come and tell Mom and Dad what's going on. I'll be mad if I talk to your brother. Yang Rui hurriedly pulled Lu Jingli and asked. Lu Jingli scratched his head and said, My sister-in-law invited Song Jin to the studio for the new products of the next season, but she didn't manage to invite her. On the fourth day, yesterday, it happened to be a Saturday. The scenery there was very good, so my sister-in-law took Xiaobao there for a spring outing. My brother was on a business trip that day, so Jiang Mui and I went with him to do hard labor and have fun. My sister-in-law also caught a rabbit. She wanted to roast it, but Xiaobao liked it so much that she gave it to him to play with. Oh, how nice it would be for me to roast it. That rabbit is so spicy and fat. It must be delicious. The blue veins on Lu Chongshan's forehead twitched. Get to the point. Yang Rui touched her forehead helplessly. One was a man of few words, and the other was a chatterbox. Couldn't they balance each other out? Oh. Lu Jingli recalled the rabbit and then continued, then it rained halfway, so we went to Mr. Song's place to hide from the rain. After that, Xiaobao had some contact with Mr. Song. Mr. Song probably discovered Xiaobao's talent in painting, so he took the initiative to take Xiaobao as his apprentice. Okay. Yang Rui nodded repeatedly. All right. After hearing Lu Jingli's explanation, Yang Rui and Lu Chongshan were shocked. Neither of them had expected that Xiaobao could become Song Jin's disciple because of Ningxi. At night, after returning to the old house, Yang Rui was still thinking about this matter. Seeing that Yang Rui was distracted, Lu Chongshan asked, What are you thinking about? I'm thinking about Xiaobao's apprenticeship. It's actually because of that woman, Yang Rui muttered. Lu Chongshan frowned. What do you mean by that woman? Isn't it just a coincidence? It's all because our Xiaobao is talented. Yang Rui shook her head and said, That's too much of a coincidence. Don't you think that ever since that woman appeared, everything in our family has been going well? There was no need to talk about Tingxiao's transformation, especially Xiaobao. His body and mind were getting better and better, and he was slowly becoming like a normal person. No. How could he be like a normal person? Our Xiaobao is even smarter than Tingxiao was back then. Now, Xiaobao actually managed to invite Song Jin, who was originally impossible to invite, to be his first teacher. I heard that the teacher who taught Xiaobao martial arts is also a very powerful person. Chapter 1035. At this point, Yang Rui paused and looked at her husband. Is all of this really just a coincidence? Over the past 5 years, Tingxiao and Xiaobao's situation hasn't changed at all, but it changed as soon as this woman appeared. Lu Chongshan pinched his eyebrows. What are you trying to say? I'm thinking of the 8 characters that Master Xian Jing calculated for Ningxi. Unparalleled fortune, bringing prosperity to one's husband and family, a life of many children, many blessing. Now it's coming true step by step. Yang Rui said excitedly. Lu Chongshan was stunned. I told you not to believe in these things. Although that was what he said, Lu Chongshan's expression was slightly deep in thought. In the evening, Ningxi invited Gong Shangzi, Han Momo, and Xiao Weilan to have dinner together to celebrate. After returning to the apartment, Ningxi took a shower and put on a velvet bunny one-piece pajamas in a good mood. Then she sat cross-legged on the bed and began to calculate the accounts. Recently, the studio's profits had been very impressive. The figure had exceeded 10 million yuan. Compared to ordinary people, she was now a little rich woman. Ningxi planned that it was almost time to buy a small villa. Although the place she was living in was very private, It was a place arranged by the company after all. There were still a lot of people who knew that she lived here. It was inconvenient for Lu Tingxiao to come here usually, so it was better to buy a house by himself. It was a home of her own, after all. Neither the small shabby house arranged by Starlight Entertainment nor the high-end apartment building arranged by Shengshi Entertainment belonged to her. Of course, the most important thing was that it was convenient for her to keep a mistress in her house. After careful planning, Ningxi had basically put the matter of buying a house on the agenda. She was going to ask Lu Tingxiao's opinion and see what he liked. Of course, there was also Xiaobao. Seeing that it was still early, Ningxi was going to make a lunch for Xiaobao. As soon as she walked into the kitchen, she remembered that she had run out of soy sauce. So she took off her apron and went to buy soy sauce. Because the convenience store was not far downstairs, Ningxi didn't change her clothes. She took the change and the key downstairs. "Boss, give me a bottle of soy sauce." Ningxi leaned on the counter and put the change on it. "Oh, okay." In the convenience store, a lady boss in her 40s or 50s handed a bottle of soy sauce to Ningxi and looked her up and down, looking a little displeased. "It's so late. Why did your mother let a little girl like you out to buy soy sauce?" "Ah." Ningxi was speechless. "It's okay, boss. My house is nearby." Ningxi tied her hair into 2 ponytails and wore cartoon one-piece pajamas. She looked like a 17-year-old minor. No wonder the boss misunderstood her. "You can't even get close. You're such a cute little girl. What if you meet a bad guy? Next time, don't come out alone at night," the lady boss reminded him. Ningxi nodded. "I know, thank you, Sister Tilda." Hearing Ningxi call her sister, the proprietress beamed with joy and gave her a colorful lollipop. "Take it and eat it." Thus, Ningxi held a bottle of soy sauce in her hand and a lollipop in her mouth that the lady boss had given her. She skipped happily towards her home. Just as he was thinking about what to cook for little Bowsy later, a person suddenly appeared in front of him. Chapter 1036. It was a strange woman. She was wearing a tight black night suit and had the same aura as Feng Xiaoxiao, a killer's aura. "Brother Shi, Uncle Feng wants to see you." The woman looked at her and said expressionlessly. At this moment, Ningxi. Damn it. She really met a bad guy. She had never expected that she would meet Feng Jin's men when she went downstairs to buy soy sauce. Now the only weapon she had to defend herself was a bottle of soy sauce. The woman said and opened the black car door. "Please." Ningxi's brain worked quickly. The next second, she tilted her head and asked in confusion while biting her lollipop, "Sister, who are you? You seem to have mistaken me for someone else. I'm not the brother Shi you mentioned just now." The woman froze when she heard this. "You're not Tang Shi?" Ningxi continued to bite her lollipop and shook her head innocently. "Sister, I'm Rabbit." The woman looked her up and down and then glanced at the direction of Ningxi's apartment building, saying coldly, "I saw you coming out of room 701. Ningxi scratched her head. "I know sister in room 701. I often visit her, but she's a girl, not my brother." Looking at Ningxi's innocent look, the woman looked even more confused. Although she knew that Tang Shi was actually a woman and had seen the photos of Tang Shi in women's clothes, compared with Ningxi, the person in front of her didn't seem to be the same person. Could it be that she was really mistaken? "Oh, it's so late. Pretty sister, I'm going home, or my mom will scold me." "Bye-bye Tilda Ning," she said as she skipped and ran forward. Behind her, the woman looked a bit hesitant. At this time, a voice rang in the woman's Bluetooth earpiece. "Have you found her?" "Sorry, Uncle Feng, I seem to have mistaken the target of the mission." "Mistaken the target?" "Yes, I've just sent a photo to your cell phone. Please check if this person is Tang Shi." A moment later, Feng Jin's voice came from the Bluetooth earpiece. "The person in the photo is Tang Shi." The woman. "Are you kidding me? Tang Shi?" Tang Shi was her Prince Charming. It was one thing for a Prince Charming to turn into a woman. Now, she had actually turned into a silly little rabbit. "Uncle Feng. Sorry. It's my mistake." On the other end of the wireless earpiece, Feng Jin coughed lightly. "Forget it. This time, it's not your fault. Let's continue with the mission." Yes. The woman hung up the wireless phone, moved, and instantly passed through a shortcut. She jumped over the wall and quickly chased after Ningxi. After a while, just when Ningxi finally left the woman's sight and rushed downstairs, a black shadow fell from the sky and landed in front of her. Looking at the person in front of her, Ningxi almost cursed out loud. There was no need to ask. He must have been discovered. The woman stood in front of Ningxi with a cold look, looking her up and down like a penetrating ray. Brother Shi, you're really good at disguising. Even I was almost fooled by you. Ningxi, disguise my ass. This is how I am usually. This is my true form. I was originally a cute little rabbit, you stupid humans. Chapter 1037. Ningxi's gaze turned sharp and cold. We used to be colleagues, I don't want to hurt you. Get out of my way, don't wait for me to attack you. The woman smiled nonchalantly. Brother Shi, I'm no match for you in the past, but now. I heard that you can't even take 5 hits from Feng Xiaoxiao? Ningxi. What the fuck? How did she know that? Brother Shi, come with me. I don't want to hurt you if I can, the woman said. Ningxi glanced at the gun on the woman's waist. She knew that she was trying to be polite before resorting to force. Ningxi didn't have a weapon with her. Even if she did, she wouldn't be able to defeat Feng Jin's men. After a while, Ningxi got into the car. There was a man in the car. The man was driving while the woman sat in the back with Ningxi. The woman in black searched Ningxi's body up and down, not even letting go of a small black hair clip in her hair. Ningxi tilted her head and looked at the woman who was searching her body. She said softly, "Stop searching, baby. I'm just going downstairs to buy some soy sauce. I didn't even bring my phone. What dangerous things could I have on me?" Hearing the voice beside her ear, the woman suddenly froze for a moment, and her ears inexplicably felt a little hot. That was Tangxi's voice. Tangxi's tone, although Ningxi looked like a young girl now, her tone just now instantly overlapped with Tangxi's. The woman shook her head and snapped out of her trance. She quickly tied Ningxi up tightly, not daring to let her guard down. "Pretty lady, can you tell me why Advisor Feng invited me over?" Ningxi asked tentatively. "I'm just following orders. I don't know anything else," the woman in black said expressionlessly. "You're one of Satan's men too. Why haven't I seen you before?" The woman didn't reply. She ignored Ningxi's attempts to talk to her. Ningxi had no choice but to close her eyes and wait to see what would happen next. What surprised Ningxi was that the woman didn't cover her eyes even though she had tied her up. She didn't seem to care that she knew where they were going. There were fewer lights and cars outside the car window. The car gradually left the city and headed towards the suburbs. Where were they planning to take her? Any further and they would be in the wilderness. Just as all kinds of speculations were running through Ningxi's mind, the car finally stopped in front of a retro OU villa. After getting off the car and seeing the place clearly, Ningxi's face instantly turned pale, without a trace of blood. Holy shit. Isn't this the famous haunted house in Imperial Capital? It was said that a woman had been hanged in the house, and she was already pregnant at that time. She had lost 2 lives, and the place was filled with yin energy. Ever since then, the house had been haunted, and many strange and terrifying things had happened. One of the tenants was even scared to death. Since then, no one dared to take over the house. What's going on? Of all the places, why did he have to bring her here? She was most afraid of Ghost. Brother Shi, please let go. Ningxi's hands were tied. She clung to the door with a few fingers and refused to let go. Not only that, but she also went back into the car. The woman exchanged a look with the driver, and then dragged Ningxi out. There was a gun behind Ningxi's waist. She could only shake her legs and walk step by step toward the terrifying haunted house in front of her. Chapter 1038. The woman in black looked at Ningxi's pale face and trembling legs, and a trace of suspicion flashed across her face. Ningxi had been quite calm along the way, and even slept for a while, but when she arrived at the place, she didn't expect to be this scared. But it was no wonder that Ningxi was scared. That person was really scary. The next second, with a creak, the woman in black pushed open the heavy door of the villa. The huge house was empty and gloomy. There were no lights in the house, only a few white candles on the wall. The candlelight swayed slightly, emitting a dim yellow light, making the whole house look even more eerie. Under the dim candlelight, the medieval oil paintings on the wall looked as scary as ghosts, and the sound of their footsteps echoed in the house. A clock, a bronze mirror, a silver candlestick, animal teeth and antlers. Under those extremely retro decorations, the whole house was like a scene of a horror film. It was as if a hideous and bloody face of a ghost would suddenly appear in the mirror, or a white-clothed hanging ghost would suddenly appear in front of her. Ningxi walked forward step by step, her footsteps getting heavier and heavier, as if they were filled with lead. Behind her, the woman in black who was holding a gun against her saw that she was walking slower and slower, and her expression was clearly displeased. The woman in black was about to urge her, when the clock in the corner pointed to 12 o'clock with a click in the dead silent house. Dong, dong, dong. The huge bell rang without warning, echoing in the empty house. Ghost. The moment the bell rang, Ningxi's scream almost broke the roof. She almost rolled and crawled around, and then fell into the arms of the woman in black, trembling non-stop, obviously frightened. The woman in black, brother she, actually, afraid of ghosts. At this moment, she was simply beginning to doubt her life. The most frightening thing was that the image of a male god in her heart was collapsing step by step, shattering into pieces, until it turned into ashes. What male god? It was all fleeting clouds, it's just a bell. The woman looked expressionlessly at the little white rabbit in her arms. Bell sound, scared me to death, sob sob sob. After a long while, the woman finally brought Ningxi to one of the rooms upstairs. It was just a few short steps, but Ningxi felt like she had gone through 81 hardships. The woman in black originally thought that Ningxi was deliberately stalling for time, but then she found that her forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. It seemed that she was really very scared, and it was definitely not an act. Until now, the woman in black had yet to recover from the shock of the Prince Charming's disillusionment. Seeing that the woman turned to leave after taking her to this room, Ningxi immediately chased after her nervously and stopped in front of her. Where are you going? Please wait a moment. So you want to leave me here alone? No. Don't go. What am I supposed to wait for? Can't you wait with me? Aren't you afraid that I'll sneak away? My mission ends here. No matter how Ningxi begged, the other party still left heartlessly. Fuck. Let's see if you can still leave so easily after I change into men's clothes. Chapter 1039. The woman's footsteps got further and further away, until they disappeared. The entire house was silent, and not a single sound could be heard. Every time she moved her body, that extremely subtle sound would be magnified infinitely and played back in her ears in horror. It was already so scary when they were together. Being alone was simply torture to her. Ningxi took a deep breath and recited from the Great Compassion Mantra to the Heart-Cleansing Mantra to the Diamond Sutra, all the way to the core values of socialism. She then looked around the room to distract herself. There was only a white candle lit on the dressing table in this room, and the light was even dimmer. She could vaguely see that the overall style of the room was the same as the outside. The only difference was that it was more eerie and scary. Moreover, she realized that this room was very big. From the structure and layout, it should be the master bedroom. Thinking of this, Ningxi, who was originally standing at the door, jumped away from the door and hid in a corner far away. Didn't the legendary woman who committed suicide hang herself at the door of the master bedroom? On the beam where she was just standing, she finally knew their conspiracy. They were prepared to scare her to death. Some things could not be overcome in a lifetime, such as Ningxi's fear of ghosts. When she was still with her adoptive parents, her grandmother valued boys over girls and tried to throw her away many times. One of them was to bring her to a mass grave and leave her alone. She stayed there alone for 2 days and 2 nights. She still did not dare to recall the situation at that time. This also caused her to be very afraid of ghosts even after she grew up. Even though she knew that it was just an illusory thing, she could not overcome it. She also never watched any movies related to ghosts. Ningxi took a deep breath, calmed her mind, and tried to untie the rope on her wrist. Unfortunately, the other party used a professional method to tie the rope, and the material of the rope was also very special, so she couldn't untie it at all. She dragged her weak legs around the room and looked around. The only door and window were all tightly sealed. Through the mirror on the dressing table, she saw a pale face. It was her, like a funerary object buried deep in a gloomy and terrible grave. Ningxi's face was pale and pale. Now she did not even have the energy to think about Feng Jin's intention of locking her here. In the entire room, the only place that made her feel better was probably the bed. Ningxi's legs were so weak that she couldn't even walk. She slowly moved to the bed, then hugged a pillow and curled up into a ball. Time ticked by. Not a single person came. There was not a single sound. It was so quiet that it was as if she was the only living person left in the world. Until, even the candles on the dressing table burned out, extinguished. The room darkened. The taut thread in Ningxi's body seemed to break. The thing that she had suppressed in the deepest part of her mind surged out like a ferocious beast in the darkness. The little girl's hand was released mercilessly. She waited and waited, but all she heard was the terrifying cries of wild beasts coming from the forest. She ran and ran, but she suddenly tripped. When she looked down, she saw a white leg bone. She was lost in the forest full of graves. She waited from night to day, and from day to night. She waited for a long time, but there was no one. Chapter 1040. Following that, the scene in her mind changed again, switching to a sunny afternoon. There was an ear-piercing sound of a car engine, and she felt a piercing pain in her abdomen. Child. Her child, blood. His pupils, and his mind, were filled with the color of blood. Child. My child. Dead. Your child is dead. He was born a dead baby. So what if he's not dead? Do you still want to raise this bastard? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Just a moment ago, he was mischievously moving in my palm. Not a bastard. He's not a bastard. Her child is not a bastard. From the moment she knew of his existence, she had been looking forward to his birth with love and hope. He's her child. He's her baby. Give me back my baby. Give me back. The woman's mournful voice kept echoing in her mind. She knew that it was her own voice. Finally, the next second, she finally saw the child, finally saw her baby, in the cold morgue, a small, purplish baby, who was no longer breathing. Her child, her baby, is dead. He's really dead. Creak. In the deathly stillness of the graveyard, there was a sudden soft sound. It was the sound of a locked door being pushed open. Ta, 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 accompanied by the sound of leather shoes stepping on the floor, a slender figure pushed open the door and walked in. The man held a candle in his fair hand. Under the hazy candlelight, his beautiful face was illuminated. His light gray eyes, coupled with his silver hair, made him look like a ghost. The man walked step by step towards the bed in the room, approaching the dark shadow curled up at the head of the bed. Finally, the man stood in front of the bed, the candle in his hand illuminating the small shadow on the bed. There was a girl on the bed, hugging a pillow in her arms. Her whole body was drenched in sweat, and the bangs on her forehead were dripping with sweat as her body trembled. No. Don't. Child. Don't. The girl's mind seemed to be in a trance. Only when she sensed the approaching light and the approaching footsteps of the man, did she finally slowly raise her head. Using her pair of dark eyes, she stared blankly at the approaching man. TSK, you're still as useless as before. In the gloomy and terrifying air, the man's faint mocking voice rang out. She stared blankly at the person who came, still maintaining her original posture, did not move, did not speak, as if she had not recovered from the nightmare. At this moment, the girl was wearing furry pajamas, hugging a white pillow as she curled up at the head of the bed. Her body was shaking like a sieve, and she was staring at him with reddened eyes. The tear-stained look at the corners of her eyes it was too good at stirring up the darkness in people's hearts. The man's gaze became darker and darker. Then, he slowly stretched out his hand towards the girl. That fair hand, so fair that even the meridians could be seen, slowly touched the girl's lips. In the next second, the man felt a sharp pain in his palm. Before he could get close, the The girl had already fiercely bit down. Bright red blood flowed down the corner of the girl's mouth and the back of the man's hand. The man's expression changed abruptly. Pinching the girl's chin, he took out his own hand and pressed the girl onto the bed. His expression was frightening, and his tone was incomparably dangerous. "Heh, who are you protecting your virginity for?" Chapter 1041. Yunshin. "What do you want?" Ningxi finally came to her senses and asked the man. The man looked at his bloody hand, stuck out his tongue, and licked away the blood on his hand bit by bit. His eyes gradually turned scarlet, and he stared at her like a devil. He lowered his voice and said in her ear, "I didn't want to do anything," but now, his tone made Ningxi's hair stand on end. "I've already told you everything clearly. You saved my life once, and I've sacrificed myself for you countless times over the past 4 years. I don't owe you anything. Let's go our separate ways. What's wrong with you going your own way and me going mine?" The man chuckled and pinched her chin. "Ha, you don't owe me anything. My dear, not to mention that you're not dead, even if you're dead and turned into ashes, you're still mine. If I go to hell, you'll go with me. This pervert." The man's expression was getting crazier and crazier, and he was on the verge of losing control. Not only was Ningxi tied up, but her body was also weak. She couldn't move at all, so she could only close her eyes and shout, "You can't force yourself to do this. What's the point of doing this? Who said I like to eat melons?" Ningxi choked. "You. Even if you have my body, you can't have my heart." The man raised his eyebrows and twirled a strand of her hair. "I only want your body. Who wants your heart?" Fuck. Why didn't he play by the rules? When she was almost scared to death just now, she had been praying for someone to come quickly. Someone alive. As long as it was a living person. But now, looking at the guy in front of her, she might as well see a ghost. She must have prayed in the wrong way. "Wait. Don't you want to know why you chose Lu Tingxiao?" Ningxi shouted again. Hearing this, the man's movements paused. His narrowed eyes were filled with a cold light. He looked at her with a smile that was not a smile and said, "Tell me about it." Ningxi swallowed and heaved a sigh of relief. Perhaps it was because of the mention of Lu Tingxiao, the girl's expression seemed to soften and relax a little. It was something he had never seen before. The softness stimulated the violent genes in his body. Ningxi closed her eyes and said slowly, "Yunshin, you know a lot about me. Whether it was when I was with my adoptive parents in the countryside, when I was taken back to the Ning family at the age of 18, or when I was abroad for 4 years, I had never been myself before I met Lu Tingxiao. Because I was afraid of being abandoned and sent away, I tried my best to please my adoptive parents and grandma. Because I was afraid of being hated and ostracized, I tried my best to please my biological parents and those celebrities. Because I liked him, I gave up everything to please Su Yang. In order to survive, I even buried myself." Speaking of this, Ningxi recalled her wandering years abroad, and a cold smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. But then, the coldness slowly melted. After returning home, at the beginning of the 4 years of darkness, the hatred of revenge, I was still muddle-headed for a time, until I met that person. I met Lu Tingxiao. No one has ever treated me so well. He loved me, protected me, and doted on me. He was always suppressing and hurting himself in silence. He never forced me to do anything. I was only myself in front of him. Chapter 1042. "Oh, that's all it takes to make you fall in love with him?" The man's tone was full of sarcasm and disdain. He looked at Ningxi as if she was a silly woman who had been blinded by love. Ningxi took a deep breath and asked, "Okay. Let me ask you, if you walked into a room and saw the person you like was drugged with aphrodisiac, wearing transparent pajamas, and lying on a kilogram-sized bed covered with red petals, what would you do?" She had asked Jiang Mui the same question before. Yunshin said, "Love. Make love, very good." This answer was very Satan, so evil. The corner of Ningxi's mouth twitched and she rolled her eyes. But Lu Tingxiao didn't do anything. "That's the difference between you two. That's why I chose him. I won't take advantage of others when I'm at my most helpless. Yunshin, You don't know what love is. The man clicked his tongue. Are you sure this is love and not sexual dysfunction? Ningxi was so angry that her liver hurt. She couldn't bear it anymore. Get lost. You're the one with sexual dysfunction. The man chuckled hoarsely. Do you want to give it a try? I'm not in the mood to play tongue twisters with you. Let me tell you, it's okay to have a low EQ. You can study hard the day after tomorrow. I can teach you a killer move now. For example, at this moment, you should learn from Lu Tingxiao and be a gentleman to untie me and let me go. Ningxi said patiently. The man snorted and said, I never walk the path that others have walked. Ningxi was so angry that she almost broke her front teeth. Damn, her brain cells were all dead and her mouth was almost dry. Why didn't this bastard listen to her? Anything else you want to say? The man held his head and asked with interest as he watched her collapse. Ningxi said, damn you. Talking to this fellow was a waste of energy, playing the lute to a cow. The man raised his eyebrows. Scolding me? Ningxi. Haha, the only improvement was that she finally knew that this was a scolding. Why couldn't he improve a little in other areas? Darling, I'm advising you to return to my side for your own good. But if you continue to be with him, I'm afraid you'll be sad, the man said quietly. Ningxi rolled her eyes at him. Why would I be sad? Because I'll be a widow. You. Fuck. Ningxi was so angry that her heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys hurt. She blurted out, don't be so arrogant. I don't care what grudges you have with Lu Tingxiao. My man is not easy to deal with. Your man. Yunshen's careless expression, which was like playing with a cat, suddenly turned into an overwhelming haze. Dear, you really know how to piss me off. Looking at the man's changing face, Ningxi immediately cursed in her heart. Damn it, I shouldn't have provoked him. I was so angry with him just now that I couldn't help it. At this time, the door was suddenly pushed open from the outside. Outside the door, Tang Yi looked like he was facing a formidable enemy. He stood there with a stern expression. When he saw Ningxi standing there, he revealed an expression that said as expected. He then turned to look at Cloudy Gorge. Satan. We're surrounded by Lu Tingxiao's men. As soon as Tang Yi finished speaking, there was a cloud of dust outside the window. The trees and weeds shook violently and there was a loud roar of propellers. Chapter 1043. You came so fast. Just in time. I miss him so much too. The silver-haired man looked at the roaring private armed helicopters outside the window and snorted coldly. His eyes were filled with almost morbid excitement, and then he walked straight out of the door, completely throwing Ningxi to the back of his mind. Tang Yi also followed him. Before leaving, he turned to look at Ningxi with an indescribable look in his eyes. He had heard that Lu Tingxiao had a private armed force, but just for a woman, he dared to use his private armed force directly under the feet of the emperor. Hey, don't go. Eldest senior brother, don't go. If you want to keep me locked up, just keep me locked up. But at least let a girl in to accompany me. You know that I'm afraid of ghosts. Before Ningxi finished her words, the door was closed again with a bang. These beasts. Especially Yunshen. Damn it, as soon as he heard that Lu Tingxiao was here, he ran so fast and left me in this damn place. You two should just go and live your lives. She didn't know if it was because Lu Tingxiao was here. Although she was the only one left in the room at the moment, she inexplicably seemed to be not afraid anymore. She hurriedly ran to the floor-to-ceiling window, leaned against the window and looked outside. Unfortunately, the light was too dim. She could only see a lot of helicopters hovering above her head. She couldn't see the specific situation at all, let alone where Lu Tingxiao was. No, she had to find a way out. What if Feng Jin came up with a bad idea again? Thinking of this, Ningxi hurriedly searched the room again, but after a long time, she really couldn't find anything suitable. She couldn't lift anything that was too big for her hands now because her hands were tied, so she could only hit the window hard, trying to break it. However, she didn't know what material the window was made of. It was so hard that her bones almost broke, but it didn't move at all. At the same time, in a courtyard overgrown with weeds downstairs. Among the helicopters hovering above her head, One of them slowly landed on the ground and then stopped in an open space in the middle. First, a group of heavily armed men quickly walked down from the helicopter. Finally, a man in a black suit with a cold expression walked down from the helicopter. From the middle of the armed formation, he walked step by step towards the eerie house in the middle. At this moment, the people in front of the haunted house were also fully armed. In the short period of time that they discovered that Lu Tingxiao had surrounded them, more than 10 people had gathered in front of the house. However, compared to Lu Tingxiao's serious attitude, the people on the haunted house's side were relaxed. The door to the haunted house opened, and a silver-haired man walked out. After seeing the silver-haired man, the people who were leaning casually suddenly became more solemn. Their attitudes were also very respectful, and they took the initiative to make a path for him. 2 men, one as cold as ice and the other as evil as a ghost, walked towards each other step by step. As the 2 of them walked, the subordinates on both sides looked nervous, ready to fight at any time. Finally, the 2 stopped 10 steps away from each other. Their eyes met in the air with a boom, as if they had collided into each other. The silver-haired man curled his lips, and his scarlet eyes were spreading flames. He faintly looked at the man not far away from him, and the bloodthirst on his face became even stronger. We meet again. Chapter 1044. Lu Tingxiao said, "Hand her over." The silver-haired man held his forehead as if he had just heard a funny joke. He laughed hoarsely. "Heh, you intruded into my territory and asked me to hand her over. Boss Lu, you're funny." Lu Tingxiao looked at the time on his watch expressionlessly. 3 minutes. What he meant was obvious. He was giving him 3 minutes to hand her over. Once he was done with the formalities, he would ask for the troops. When the silver-haired man heard this, a strange smile suddenly appeared on his face. Then, he raised his eyebrows and said slowly, "Lu Tingxiao, when she was at her lowest, most miserable, most desperate, and most painful time, I took her in and taught her all the survival skills and methods to protect herself. She and I belong to the same world. The world is so big, but in the end, she will still understand that this is the place that truly belongs to her." The moment the silver-haired man finished speaking, Lu Tingxiao's expression darkened. The murderous aura around him intensified, and he looked like a ghost. He was 100 times scarier than the ghostly man in front of him. Even Lu Tingxiao's subordinates looked at each other in dismay. As the night deepened, the thick ink-colored clouds above slowly covered the last trace of the moon's afterglow. Darkness covered the sky and covered the earth. After some time, Lu Tingxiao's murderous expression instantly turned calm. He looked at the silver-haired man in front of him expressionlessly. 2 minutes. At the same time, the subordinates of both sides raised their guns. The snipers in the distance aimed at each other's men. Everyone tensed up, ready to fire at any moment. The atmosphere was on the verge of exploding. In a corner not far away, Feng Xiaoxiao wiped her sweat with difficulty. "They're going to fight." Annie, who was beside her, was panicking. "What do we do? What do we do? They're not really going to fight, are they?" "Sister Xiaoxiao, I just asked around." "So Advisor Feng got his men to kidnap Brother Shi as well. How could Advisor Feng do this? To be honest, I didn't expect old Feng to be so simple and violent this time. What is he trying to do?" Feng Xiaoxiao looked doubtful. Tang Yi's cold voice came from the side. Feng Jin's biggest taboo is having someone or something beyond his control affect Satan's judgment. For a man, a woman who can make him lose control is nothing more than getting what he wants. So old Feng is going to solve the problem at the source. Holy shit. Was Satan really going to take the opportunity to imprison little junior sister? You have to realize that this haunted house is like little junior sister's sealing technique. Little junior sister is most afraid of ghosts, so she'll definitely lose all of her battle prowess once she enters this place. Furthermore, her battle prowess isn't that high to begin with. Feng Xiaoxiao's lips twitched. Annie tensed up and muttered hesitantly, "I don't think Big Boss would do such a thing. Although Big Boss looks like a bad person and has a bad mouth, he is actually very good to his people. Just like how Big Boss always said that he would throw me into the sea to feed the fishes, but he never really did it." "Your analogy. What a naive child." Feng Xiaoxiao patted Annie's head speechlessly. Afterwards, Feng Xiaoxiao looked at the two people who were about to fight and murmured, "Is that really the only reason old Feng is doing this? Why do I feel like old Feng is deliberately stirring up trouble?" Chapter 1045. Apart from that, the biggest reason for today's incident was that they finally got to see Lu Tingxiao's legendary underground force. Although this was only the tip of the iceberg, they could already foresee the colossus hidden under the iceberg. It was not inferior to their organization. "We can't let this go on. I'll go and save Brother Shi. Only Brother Shi can stop them now," Annie said anxiously. Feng Xiaoxiao grabbed Annie, who was about to run away. "What are you going to do? What can you do even if you go? You're so weak that you can't even open a door. Just stay here. I'll go." "But what if boss blames me?" Annie said worriedly. "You're his direct subordinates, so you can't go. Although I'm also a member of the organization, it's just a part-time job. At least I have the original sin to back me up." "Don't worry," Feng Xiaoxiao said and quickly ran into the house. The original sin was the world's largest assassin organization. Feng Xiaoxiao was loyal to the organization and was also a core member of the original sin. Tang Yi didn't stop Feng Xiaoxiao when he saw that she was going to save Brother Shi. He turned a blind eye to it. In the creepiest master bedroom on the second floor. When Feng Xiaoxiao unlocked the door with an iron wire and walked in, Ningxi was still fighting against the glass window in front of her. The little girl was holding a sharp animal bone in her hand and poking it at the window. At this time, a force suddenly attacked her from behind, grabbing the two rabbit ears on the back of her clothes and pulling her away from the window. Then, she saw a black boot kicking at her. In the next second, with a loud bang, the window shattered. Ningxi stared blankly at the window that she had been fighting for half a day without moving. Tears streamed down her face. "Ouch. Third senior sister. You're finally here. Useless thing." Feng Xiaoxiao rolled her eyes at the girl speechlessly. She took out a dagger and untied the rope on Ningxi's hand. "I've already reminded you last time. Why are you getting weaker and weaker now?" Ningxi pouted and mumbled, "That means that I'm living a carefree life, happy and sweet tilde. The veins on Feng Xiaoxiao's forehead throbbed. "How dare you stuff me with dog food? Believe it or not, I will kick you to death. Shijie, you're the one who can't bear to." Ningxi hopped over and hugged her, rubbing her chest. Feng Xiaoxiao looked at Ningxi's adorable, innocent, and lively appearance. She closed her eyes and revealed a pitiful expression. "No wonder Shiliu has been looking like he has nothing left to live for. He must have been disillusioned by your current appearance." Ningxi blinked. "Shiliu? Who is Shiliu?" "Code 16, the woman who kidnapped you," Feng Xiaoxiao replied. Oh, she, today, maybe, probably, a little disillusioned, cough. Ningxi wiped her sweat. "I think this woman used to have a crush on you. She was probably the one who fought for Feng Jin's mission. She wanted to take the opportunity to get close to Adonis, but in the end, TSK. Feng Xiaoxiao said with a really tragic expression. Ningxi muttered speechlessly. "You're blaming me? Who asked her to kidnap me and leave me alone in the haunted house? I was almost scared to death. This is retribution." Chapter 1046. "Alright, that's enough. Go downstairs and find your man. They're about to start fighting. This is China, and it's under the emperor's feet. It's not a foreign country. It won't do either of them any good if they fight," Feng Xiaoxiao urged. Oh. Third senior sister, I'm leaving. Let's have a drink next time." Ningxi climbed onto the windowsill. Feng Xiaoxiao glanced at her worriedly. "Can you do it? Why don't you take the stairs? That's so troublesome. Senior sister, can you stop looking down on my strength? It's only the third floor," Ningxi said as she climbed down the pipe speechlessly. "Feng Xiaoxiao, who told you to be spoiled like a little white rabbit? How can I not worry? But, damn it. As a woman, she was a little envious. After all, she had been fighting and killing for so many years, and she had experienced more terrifying things than Ningxi. Of course, She was also less trusting than Ningxi, men. Hair. She would never fall in love with such creatures. On the other side, Ningxi soon realized that she would suffer if she didn't listen to her senior sister. Halfway up, Ningxi's legs were still a little weak, so she fell down with a plop and let out a cry of ouch. In an instant, all the tensed gazes turned towards the foot of the wall. Then, everyone saw a cute girl crawl up from the grass and spit out a mouthful of grass. Her little face was scrunched up, and she was muttering something. Where did this rabbit come from? A man muttered in the crowd on Yunshan's side. Fuck. Big news. There's a woman in Boss's room, and it's a tender underage one. Oh my god. Boss is into this. The commotion in the crowd grew, and the expressions on their faces became more and more strange. Then, a cold female voice rang out, "That's Tang Shi." Hearing Shuliu's words, everyone was speechless. Are you fucking kidding me? After seeing Ningxi, Lu Tingxiao's expression changed instantly. All he could see was his wife. Yunshan glanced at Feng Xiaoxiao, who was standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window upstairs like an ice blade. Then, he looked at Ningxi and said coldly, "Come here." Ningxi curled her lips and patted off the dust and grass on her body. Although she didn't speak, her expression was obvious. Why would I go to your place to die? Ah, great demon king. After getting up and seeing the familiar figure not far away, Ningxi's gaze instantly turned to Lu Tingxiao with joy. This contrast in attitude was too obvious. At this moment, the three of them formed a triangle. Lu Tingxiao and Yunshan stood opposite each other 10 steps away, while Ningxi stood between them and under the wall not far away. Just as Ningxi was about to run towards Lu Tingxiao without hesitation, an extremely gloomy voice rang in her ears, "I'll give you one last chance. Think carefully before you make a decision. Decide who to follow." The extremely gloomy voice made Ningxi freeze on the spot. She raised her head, looked at Lu Tingxiao with a cold face, and then looked at Yunshan with a gloomy face. What to do? She wasn't struggling with the question of who to choose, because she didn't need to think about it at all. What if she went to Lu Tingxiao's place and Yunshan got angry out of humiliation? Chapter 1047. This guy was a lunatic. Once he went crazy, he would do things regardless of the consequences. Even if this was the doorstep of the Emperor of Heaven, he would still dare to blow it up. Although this was a desolate suburb, it was still the territory of the capital after all. There were guns and cannons here. Once they made a noise, it would definitely alarm the people above. Even if Lu Tingxiao was the uncrowned king, the people above would turn a blind eye to him. But this was under the condition that both sides got along peacefully and mutually benefited each other. However, if he made such a big fuss under their noses and slapped their faces, how could the people above not be angry? Looking at the armed forces on Lu Tingxiao's side, which were even more terrifying than the regular army, Ningxi was shocked. She didn't expect that Lu Tingxiao would go to this extent and take such a big risk for her. Just as Ningxi was weighing and analyzing the pros and cons, there was a dead silence on the scene, and the two men's faces became more and more gloomy. Especially Lu Tingxiao. Although he had the upper hand just now because of his identity as Ningxi's ex-boyfriend, Yunshan's words still hit the cage of the giant beast in his heart. As for Yunshan, he knew Ningxi too well after getting along with her for 4 years. At a glance, he knew what she was thinking and worried about at this moment, so he looked so gloomy. At this moment, a murderous aura suddenly came from not far away. In the crowd, a middle-aged man in a Chinese tunic suit suddenly appeared. A black muzzle in his hand suddenly pointed at Ningxi and instantly pressed the trigger. No one had time to notice it. The next second, bang, a gunshot rang out. Almost at the same time, another gunshot rang out. The first one was from Feng Jin, and the second one was from Yunshan. Everyone stared at the scene in shock. Even Feng Xiaoxiao, Tang Yi, Annie and the rest did not expect Feng Jin to suddenly shoot. The cold air around the silver-haired man was overwhelming and confined Feng Jin. The latter was covered with cold sweat and covered his bleeding wrist. Just now, he had shot at Ningxi, but because his wrist was shot by Yunshan, he missed the target. It seems that I have to deal with the family affairs first. Yunshan raised his hand with a horrified expression. Immediately, all his subordinates put away their weapons and retreated like a tide. Seeing the other side suddenly retreat, Lu Tingxiao's side also relaxed. Then, they looked at Lu Tingxiao, waiting for instructions. Lu Tingxiao glanced coldly at the middle-aged man. After a while, he also raised his hand. In an instant, everyone on Lu Tingxiao's side retracted their weapons and retreated. The tense atmosphere of the night finally eased up. Seeing that the crisis was over, Ningxi hurriedly ran towards Lu Tingxiao. Seeing the girl running towards him step by step, Lu Tingxiao felt as if he had been redeemed from hell. She was walking towards him, because she fell down halfway and rolled on the ground in the bushes that hadn't been cleaned for a long time. Ningxi's clothes were already covered in dust, and the fluff on her clothes and hair were covered in weeds. She had completely changed from a little white rabbit to a little wild rabbit. However, the moment the girl threw herself into the man's arms and raised her little head with her eyes full of attachment, he knew that no matter how wild she was outside, she still belonged to someone. The moment the warm and soft body pounced on him, Lu Tingxiao instantly tightened his arms, and the empty heart that was whistling with cold wind was instantly filled. Chapter 1048. The silver-haired man's face was as cold as ice as he watched Ningxi run towards Lu Tingxiao and the two of them hugging each other. Feng Jin clutched his injured wrist as he walked towards the man. He took the opportunity to say, "Satan, Tang she would have stayed if she knew what's good for her. However, she's ungrateful and ungrateful. She doesn't respect you at all. Why do you?" The man glanced at him coldly. "I like it when she's ungrateful and ungrateful. Do you have a problem with that?" Feng Jin, seeing that Lu Tingxiao had already left with his men, Feng Jin gritted his teeth. His face was livid. "Satan, that woman will destroy you. Heh, a woman can destroy me. Why don't you take over my position?" The man's face was filled with murderous intent. Feng Jin lowered his head. "I wouldn't dare." The man snorted. "I'm doing this for Uncle Qiao's sake. If there's a next time, you'll go back to where you came from." Hearing this, Feng Jin's face turned pale. He thought that Satan would make a move after witnessing the woman's betrayal. Who knew, that wouldn't work. He couldn't let this woman live. "Are ye?" "Yes." The man glanced at Feng Jin's pale face from the corner of his eye. He lazily adjusted his cuffs and said, "Spread the word. If anyone dares to touch a single hair on Tang Shi, I'll break all their bones." "Tang Yi, yes." Feng Jin froze on the spot, not daring to say a word. The man narrowed his eyes and looked at the helicopter disappearing into the night sky. Then, he opened his hand. In his hand was a small fluffy white ball that had fallen from the girl's clothes. It lay alone in his palm. Lu Tingxiao didn't board the helicopter that they had boarded. Instead, he brought Ningxi to another small helicopter. Apart from her and Lu Tingxiao, there was only the pilot on the helicopter. Almost as soon as the door closed, Ningxi was engulfed in a blanket of kisses. The man's broad palm held her waist tightly, as though he wanted to melt her into his flesh and blood. His other hand pressed against the back of the girl's head as he kissed her lips forcefully. She felt a sharp pain on her tongue. At that moment, Ningxi thought of, "Boss, if you do this, we won't die, will we?" How was the pilot supposed to focus on flying the plane? The pilot, who was flying the plane in front, expressed that he might have encountered the biggest challenge of his career. Moreover, the boss in the backseat didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. Instead, it was getting more and more intense. This isn't going to be a shock, right? Even if he was a professionally trained driver with 8 years of driving experience, he still couldn't resist such a blood-boiling live version. At the same time, Lu Tingxiao's movements became even more out of control, probably because he noticed that the girl was distracted. He didn't know how much restraint he had to use to stop himself from doing things that would hurt her. But even so, the smell of blood quickly spread in their mouths. At this moment, Lu Tingxiao's entire body was filled with dark negative factors. It was terrifying. However, Ningxi was not afraid at all. Instead, she took the initiative to wrap her arms around the man's neck and kiss him. Her fingers gently stroked his back. She even pushed against the man's chest and pressed him under her body. She lowered her head and put the bunny ear hat on her head. She didn't even have time to take it off. She leaned over and kissed the man's lips. The fear that had been suppressed in the haunted house for a long time was now all poured into this kiss. The man used one hand to steady the girl's body to prevent her from falling and responded to the girl's kiss even more passionately. The pilot in front looked at the two people behind him who were riding on top of each other. One was dressed in a meticulous black suit, the other was dressed in a cute and soft cartoon bunny costume. This was really terrible. Chapter 1049. This kiss lasted for a long time. It went from wild and violent to passionate, to tender and affectionate. Neither of them was willing to let go. In the end, it was Ningxi who asked him to stop. She pushed away the man's shoulder that was about to kiss her again. Okay, if we continue, we'll really die. The pilot almost burst into tears. Only the lady boss knew how to take care of him. The man buried his head in her neck, obviously still shocked. Ningxi looked at Lu Tingxiao worriedly. This is the territory of the emperor. What happened tonight? Will it affect you? The man brushed his lips over her sensitive collarbone. Kiss me again and it won't. Ningxi was speechless. The pilot was speechless. She couldn't do this anymore. Also, please return my noble and aloof boss to me. They took a bus halfway and arrived at the city in the wee hours of the morning. The sky was still dark. Lu Tingxiao was worried that the apartment might not be safe, so he took her to the palace. Seeing that her ankle was injured, Lu Tingxiao picked her up and carried her upstairs. Seeing that Lu Tingxiao was about to leave, Ningxi grabbed his hand. Where are you going? I'm going to get the first aid kit. Your leg needs to be treated. Oh, hurry up. Moments later, Lu Tingxiao came back with the first aid kit. When Ningxi fell down just now, there were a lot of abrasions on the exposed parts of her body. Lu Tingxiao first cleaned the wounds with alcohol and then applied medicine. Fortunately, these were just ordinary abrasions and could be treated with a little simple treatment. Looking at the red and swollen marks on her wrist, Lu Tingxiao applied some ointment for her. Are there any other injuries? Lu Tingxiao asked. Yes. Ningxi nodded. Lu Tingxiao frowned and his face darkened. Where? Ningxi pointed at her lips. Here. You bit me. Lu Tingxiao was stunned and coughed. Let me apply some ointment for you. The cool light green ointment was applied on her lips and she felt much better. Seeing that Lu Tingxiao was about to leave after applying the ointment, Ningxi immediately grabbed his shirt. Where are you going? I'm going to get you a towel. Oh, then come back quickly. Forget it, I'll go with you. Ningxi thought for a while and followed him to the bathroom. Lu Tingxiao fetched some hot water and helped her wash her dirty little face and hands. The wounds on your body can't come in contact with water. That's all for now. Yes, yes. After a simple wipe, the two returned to the bedroom. Are you sure there are no other wounds? Lu Tingxiao asked worriedly. I really didn't. Ningxi rolled up her sleeves and pants to show him. They didn't make things difficult for me. It was an inhumane mental attack on me. Lu Tingxiao relaxed a little. Then you should change into a clean set of clothes first. You'll feel more comfortable. Lu Tingxiao said and was about to go out to help her change her clothes. However, as soon as he turned around, Ningxi came up to him and stopped him. Where are you going? Lu Tingxiao looked at the girl suspiciously. I told you to change your clothes. Why are you going out when I'm changing? Just stay here. Ningxi was anxious. What's wrong with you? Lu Tingxiao frowned. Ningxi pursed her lips and sniffled. She moved over pitifully and hugged the man's waist tightly. I'm scared, don't go. Chapter 1050. Seeing the girl like this, Lu Tingxiao's heart ached so much that he wanted to kill someone. The air around him suddenly became cold. What did they do to you? Ningxi couldn't bear it anymore. She sobbed and complained with trembling shoulders. Bastard. They're not human. They asked me to meet anywhere but at the haunted house. You even left me waiting there alone. That house, is the rumored place where the female ghost hanged herself. It's so scary. I tried my best to leave, but my whole body was weak. I had no strength at all. They must have wanted to scare me to death. It's so sinister. Lu Tingxiao, he was almost scared to death by her too. So don't go, okay? I don't dare to stay alone. What if the female ghost comes back with me? Ningxi raised her little head pitifully and begged. Lu Tingxiao pinched his eyebrows, as if relieved of a heavy burden. At the same time, he showed a helpless expression. I won't go. Oh, are you sure? Ningxi ran to open the wardrobe to find clothes to change into and turned her head to ask worriedly. I'm sure. Ningxi confirmed it several times before she changed her clothes with relief. When she was changing her clothes, she sadly found that her favorite rabbit pajamas, the cutest, round, and furry rabbit tail on the butt was not small. Ningxi mourned for her tail for a while and then saw Lu Tingxiao standing there like a gentleman with his back turned to him, waiting for her. I'm done. Okay. Lu Tingxiao turned around and touched the girl's head. Have a good rest. Will you stay with me? How can I not stay with you? Lu Tingxiao looked at the girl and sighed. Ningxi was finally relieved. On the warm and soft bed, the girl snuggled up in the man's arms. Probably because she was really scared tonight, she fell asleep after a while. However, the girl didn't seem to sleep well. She frowned in her sleep and her forehead was covered with cold sweat. Lu Tingxiao stayed by her side and comforted her softly. At about 6 o'clock in the morning, a series of heavy footsteps came from outside the door. Lu Tingxiao looked up and saw that it was his son. Then he raised his hand and gestured for Ningxi to keep quiet. Ningxi didn't fall asleep until 4 o'clock in the morning. Perhaps it was because little Baozi saw the unusual serious expression on his father's face, but he didn't fight for his father's favor. Instead, he laid on the edge of the bed and quietly looked at his mother. Your mother slept late last night. Don't wake her up. Lu Tingxiao lowered his voice. Little Baozi nodded obediently. He laid there and looked at his mama for a while before reluctantly leaving. He still had to go to school today, so he couldn't be late. Not long after, little Bun returned with a writing board in his hand. On it were 2 words, share the burden. Lu Tingxiao was stunned. This child, she must have noticed that he seemed to have something on his mind, so she wanted to share his burden. The corner of Lu Tingxiao's mouth curled up slightly. When you're a little older. Xiaobao puffed up his cheeks. He had been working very hard to grow up. Recently, he had gained another 1 kilogram. Before going to school, Xiaobao ran over and gently gave Mama a goodbye kiss before leaving. Soon after little Bun left, Lu Tingxiao quietly looked at the girl in his arms and didn't sleep. However, after a while, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. The girl's body temperature seemed to be getting higher and higher. Chapter 1051. Because he had been hugging her, he didn't notice it immediately. He took a closer look and saw that the girl's cheeks were rosy. It wasn't a normal blush when she was sleeping. He touched her forehead and it was indeed burning hot. Ningxi had a fever. Lu Tingxiao immediately got up and dialed Qin Mufeng's number. More than an hour later, Qin Mufeng rushed over, dragging a suitcase behind him. Sir, are you a clairvoyant? I just came back from abroad and you called me without missing a second. Qin Mufeng had gone overseas to participate in an academic exchange. When Lu Tingxiao called him, he had just gotten off the plane. The moment he turned on his phone, he received a series of urgent calls. However, he was quite happy to be called this time. Ever since he had Ningxi, the 2 of them had been fine. He felt a little guilty about getting paid for doing nothing. What's going on? Why are you rushing me so urgently? Qin Mufeng asked. Lu Tingxiao replied, fever. Qin Mufeng held his forehead. Sigh. Mr. CEO, fever is a common illness. How many times do I have to explain it to you? I thought your wife was pregnant since you were so anxious. As soon as Qin Mufeng finished speaking, he realized that he was overthinking things. With Lu Tingxiao's personality, the 2 of them probably hadn't even had sex before. Speaking of which, he was so nervous when his wife was having a fever. How nervous would he be when she was going to give birth? Qin Mufeng thought to himself as he took out the equipment from the suitcase. He did a simple check on Ningxi and took her temperature. How is she? Lu Tingxiao asked. Qin Mufeng looked at the thermometer and frowned. Why is her fever so high? I'll prescribe some medicine for her. Help her lower her body temperature. If her fever doesn't go down by tonight, she'll need a drip and an injection. Okay. Don't leave. Stay here tonight, Lu Tingxiao said expressionlessly. Qin Mufeng's lips twitched. Yes, President Lu. On the bed, the girl's face was flushed and her breathing quickened. Lu Tingxiao hurriedly helped the girl up and fed her the medicine. Then he quickly found some alcohol to wipe her body and lower her body temperature. After a busy day, the girl's temperature finally stabilized a little in the evening. However, she was still unconscious. The next morning, the sun was shining brightly that day. Through the window, the room was bathed in a warm glow. The crisp chirping of birds could be heard. A few petals were blown into the room from the small garden. The air was filled with the fragrance of flowers and plants. On the bed, the girl's eyebrows were tightly knitted together, and her eyelashes kept trembling. Then, she suddenly opened her eyes, and her forehead was covered with a fine layer of sweat, as if she had just woken up from a nightmare. After opening her eyes, Ningxi's face was a little sluggish. She looked around in confusion. It was a familiar and warm bedroom. There was a bouquet of flowers in the vase at the head of the bed. Outside the window, the curtains were gently swaying in the wind. By the window, under the morning sun, the man was sitting on a chair, holding a book in his hand, but he did not flip through it. Instead, he looked out of the window. Ningxi's pupils finally focused, so she was not in hell, so she was still in the human world. Sensing movement on the bed, Lu Tingxiao immediately got up and walked over. He touched the girl's forehead and said, "You're awake. How long did I sleep?" Ningxi mumbled in a daze. 2 days. So long. Ningxi held her forehead, then looked at the green stubble on the man's chin with some heartache. "Didn't you sleep all this time?" This time, the one who was the most shocked wasn't her, but Lu Tingxiao. She didn't know how Lu Tingxiao found out so quickly that she had been taken away. Could it be that there was a spy, or Feng Jin had deliberately leaked the news? Chapter 1052. I'm fine. I can sleep. How do you feel? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Lu Tingxiao asked. Ningxi shook her head and then looked up at the man in front of her. Lu Tingxiao, is there something on your mind? In fact, since she came back, she had felt that Lu Tingxiao seemed to have something on his mind. Just now, he seemed to be in a bad state, although he hid it well. Lu Tingxiao was taken aback at first, but then he fell silent. After coming back, although he tried his best to ignore it, the silver-haired man's words kept ringing in his mind. When she was at her lowest, most embarrassed, most desperate and most painful time, I took her in and taught her all the survival skills and means to protect herself. She and I are people from the same world. The world is so big, but in the end, she will still understand where she really belongs, the place that really belongs to her. Although he tried to restrain and convince himself, he still couldn't deceive himself. He was jealous. Jealous of that man, jealous of him, jealous of their past, jealous of the special bond between them. Lu Tingxiao's face became more and more terrible. Although he was in the sun, his whole body seemed to be frozen at a speed visible to the naked eye, layer by layer. Ningxi, will you leave me? Lu Tingxiao fixed his eyes on the girl in front of him and finally spoke. There was a determination in his eyes as if he would lose her in the next second. However, what responded to him was the girl's warm and soft body that suddenly fell into his arms. Her warmth enveloped him and melted all the ice and snow around him. Ningxi had thought that he had a deep grudge against that person and that the sky had fallen. When she heard this, she was speechless. But seeing him like this, she felt sorry for him, so she hugged him tightly and said discontentedly and helplessly, "Why would I leave you? Why do you think I work so hard every day? Isn't it to be with you? Isn't it to make more money? Isn't it to marry you in the future? Isn't it just to stay in your world?" Being with Lu Tingxiao was probably the biggest accident in her life, and also the biggest gamble. From the very beginning, she knew that she shouldn't, but even though she knew that she shouldn't, she still fell for him. Even though she knew that she should distance herself from him, she still approached him step by step. The next second, Ningxi lifted her weak arms, flipped over and pressed herself on the man's body. She said fiercely, "Lu Tingxiao, why are you asking this? I'm warning you. It was you who seduced me. It was you who seduced me, it was you who bewitched me, so, if one day you dare to betray me. Ningxi fiercely threatened him, but in her heart she smiled bitterly. Even if that day came, she probably wouldn't bear to hurt him at all. Unknowingly, before she realized it, she had already been completely eaten by him. The man gazed at her intently, his pupils reflecting the entire world. I won't betray my own life. The girl's expression changed. Her eyes were also filled with determination. I won't either. Lu Tingxiao, I have 2 lives. One is when I was born, and the other is when I met you. Lu Tingxiao suddenly tightened his arms around the girl. The dense dark clouds above their heads disappeared, and the sky was clear and boundless. Chapter 1053. The two of them snuggled up to each other in the warm spring sunshine. Although the security measures at your place are good, they can only keep out ordinary thieves and reporters. Lu Tingxiao said thoughtfully. Hearing this, Ningxi immediately said excitedly, "Oh, I'm planning to move to a new house. I calculated my current savings. It's enough to buy a nice villa. I was about to discuss this with you. Let's go look at a house together." "Okay." Lu Tingxiao nodded. "I'll keep an eye out for a suitable one. As for the security system, I'll do it myself." "Okay." Ningxi nodded. Lu Tingxiao thought for a while and still didn't feel reassured. "I'll transfer Tang Lang to your side. You need a bodyguard too." Ningxi was speechless. "Second senior will be my bodyguard?" From a security guard to a private bodyguard. Wasn't it getting worse and worse? Although the former was just a security guard, it was still a listed company. Lu Tingxiao said, "He needs money." Ningxi, okay, she almost forgot that second senior's card was confiscated by eldest senior. He was so short of money that he had to work as a security guard and a teacher. Anyway, he only needed money. "Oh, one more thing. I think I'll need to transfer 2 people from your side." Ningxi suddenly remembered the weapons and local products at home. "Who?" Lu Tingxiao asked. "Shi Xiao and Xiongji. Are they okay?" Ningxi asked. "They went to look for you." Lu Tingxiao looked as if he had expected it. Ningxi coughed lightly. "Well, I'll be lenient if I get help from others." Lu Tingxiao pondered for a moment. Although he did not intend to use these 2 people again, their strength was indeed not bad. After the last incident, they were considered familiar with Ningxi. If he looked for other people, they might not necessarily be as diligent as them. Okay. Most importantly, how could he not agree to his wife's request? "Are you hungry?" Lu Tingxiao asked. Ningxi touched her deflated belly and nodded. "Yes. I'll go to the kitchen to see if dinner is ready." Yes. Illness came like a landslide, but it was like spinning silk. After sleeping for 2 days, Ningxi's body was still a little weak. She was about to go back to sleep on the pillow when the phone at the bedside suddenly rang. When she went downstairs to buy soy sauce the day before yesterday, she didn't have her phone with her. Lu Tingxiao might have brought it for her. The caller ID showed that it was Lin Jiji. Seeing Lin Jiji's name on the screen, Ningxi's face suddenly changed. It's over. Too many things had happened in the past 2 days, and her illness had made her muddle-headed. She had actually forgotten that today was the day she was supposed to film the variety show. The production crew set off for Shuhe Ancient Town at 8 p.m., and it was already 7 p.m. now. By now, Ningxi was completely awake and quickly answered the call. "Hello, Sister Gigi. I'm really sorry. I wasn't feeling well, so I slept for 2 days. I just woke up, so I rushed over immediately. I was just about to inform you that the filming of the show has been delayed," Lin Jiji said. "Ah, it's delayed." Ningxi was surprised. "What's wrong with your body? Sick? Is it serious?" Lin Jiji asked with concern. Ningxi had always been professional. If it wasn't a very serious situation, she definitely wouldn't have forgotten that she had to film the show today. "It's fine. I just have a slight fever, but I'm much better now. Are you alone at home now? I'll get Xiao Dao to go over and take care of you," Lin Jiji asked. Chapter 1054. Ah, no need for that. I'm at my friend's house. He'll take care of me. Ning, she said hurriedly. Well, if anything happens, you must tell me immediately. If it's serious, you must go to the hospital. Lin Jiji urged. Okay. Then have a good rest. I don't know when baby Meng will start recording. When you recover, I'll temporarily help you change to a gourmet program called Beauty's Private Kitchen. It'll be filmed locally in the capital. It'll only take an afternoon. It's very relaxing. Okay, thank you, Sister Gigi. After hanging up the phone, Ningxi's tense nerves suddenly relaxed. She lay back on the bed and comfortably rubbed against the soft and fluffy pillow. Although it shouldn't be, suddenly hearing the news that she didn't have to work when she was sick and wanted to stay in bed was actually quite cool. At this time, the door was pushed open with a creak. It was Little Bao who came in. Seeing Little Bao, Ningxi's eyes suddenly lit up. Ah! Bao! Before she finished speaking, Little Bao actually slammed the door, and then came the sound of footsteps going downstairs. Ah! Ningxi scratched her head in confusion. What's going on, my Bao? Not long after, there was another sound of footsteps going up the stairs. The little fellow pushed the door open again and came in, carefully holding a bowl of porridge in his hand. He walked to her bed, carefully scooped a spoonful of porridge, blew on it, and then brought it to Mama's mouth. It turned out that he went downstairs to bring breakfast for himself. Ningxi was so touched that she almost wanted to hug him and rub him, but she resisted, afraid that she would pass the illness to him, so she said softly, "Baby, you're so considerate, but Mama is sick now, and I'm afraid I'll infect you. Let your father feed me, okay?" Little Bao steadily held the spoon, his eyes firm. Baby is not afraid of illness. Baby has to take care of Mama. At this time, Lu Tingxiao pushed the door open and came in with some appetizers. He said, "Boys aren't so fragile, let him feed you." Ningxi was also afraid that Little Bao's hands would get sore, so she hurriedly ate the porridge. "Oh, my Bao is really delicious." Little Bun stood by the bed, feeding Ningxi porridge. Lu Tingxiao sat by the bed, holding an apple in his hand and slowly peeling it. When Lu Jingli and Jiang Mui came in, they saw a warm and beautiful family of 3. "Sister-in-law, are you feeling better? I thought it would be too tacky to give you flowers, so I picked some vegetables from my yard for you." Lu Jingli was really carrying a basket of vegetables in his hand. Jiang Mui, who was holding a bunch of tacky flowers, was speechless. Jiang Mui glanced at Lu Jingli speechlessly. Then he put a bunch of fresh flowers on the table. Looking at Ningxi's pale face, he murmured, "I didn't expect that you would get sick." Ningxi was speechless. "Humans get sick. Am I not a human?" Jiang Mui replied, "Sometimes, I'm not. Sister-in-law, what's going on? You're as strong as an ox. How did you suddenly become so ill?" Lu Jingli asked suspiciously. As strong as an ox, Lu Jingli. He had just come in for a while and he had already offended 2 people. Ningxi glared at him. "Can't I just be a little frightened?" "Damn. Sister-in-law, you're kidding me. What kind of frightened you so much that you got sick?" Lu Jingli obviously didn't believe her. Ningxi ignored him. She would rather maintain her image as strong as an ox than reveal that she was afraid of ghosts. Also, she decided, she would go to the next hard drive and watch a horror movie until she was no longer afraid. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.